In this tutorial, we're going to review Anaconda Navigator, which is a sort of an umbrella program for doing some Python computing. I want you to go to your program menu and open the Anaconda Navigator, and notice that there's several tools that will be at our fingertips there. We're going to use Spyder first, which is an IDE similar to Paizo, and we're also going to use the Jupyter Notebook. But for now, let's go ahead and launch Spyder. And we see, oh yeah, don't install any new upgrades or updates. We'll see that it has a similar structure to Paizo as well. On the left, there's that editing window. At the bottom right here, we have our shell, our Python shell, where we can execute commands. And we have a multi-purpose room that we'll really be only using to explore a file structure and to define our path. And you can see that the current path is set up there in that drop-down menu bar. But we can set it as well in our preferences menu. So you can go to Python, open your preferences, go down to current working directory, and set that as to where you want it to be. Please notice that when you're running a Python script, often you'll access other files or you'll generate output. All of that stuff has to be in a place that you define. So you have to be careful at the beginning to set your environment. We'll spend a few minutes here playing around with, well, here we can remember that in our console or our shell, we can simply run a straightforward Python command, which is to print something, a string of text. But now let's spend a minute with monkeying with our working environment. So we'll use the cd command. We'll use %cd. It has a little bit different functionality. That means current directory. And unfortunately, that changed my directory back to a default user name. But so what I can do is go back to, there's a few ways to change it. We can go back to the file explorer and navigate to the place that you want to be again and double click that, and you should appear again back in your original environment. And oh, but it didn't tell me where I was. It switched me back. That's a little bit buggy, so that's kind of annoying. But what I can also do is go define that at the command line. You can either copy and paste from the drop down menu, or you can enter it by hand. And you can see that my particular path is quite convoluted, leading ultimately to a class with a Python script folder. And you can see that now when I hit enter or maybe shift enter, that shows me my current path and changes my menu bar as well, my file explorer. So that again is something I want you to play around with, find the limitations of on your own. But again, it's important to know where you're placing all your files and accessing all your files. So we can run that script that I had up there before, which simply prints hello world. You can see in the output here at line 6, it gives me the fact that it ran that file and then printed the outcome. And that's great. Very simple. But maybe what we'd like to do is create a new file. Oh, now it changed my directory again. So we're being a little bit, temp py was placed in the wrong place, so when I ran it, it skipped back to that original default directory. So one more time, we'll change it to our proper location. And again, this is all stuff you want to watch for as you're working. So let's get rid of that guy and instead create a new script. You can do that a few different ways. You can see from your menu options at the top left, and I'll just give it a new function. Same old introductory program, printing hello world. We can run it. Oops, nope, we got to give it a title. You remember that. It has to be saved in the file system before it can run. And we'll give it a name. And we'll also notice that it is being placed in the proper location. And there it is, hello world.py. La la la, there it is. Oh yeah, and we can also open our other scripts that you can place in the proper directory. And you see, again, that was the accessing that FASTA sequence. So we set up a module called file that would open that file and then place the contents of that file in a variable called text. Remember that. This is all from last week. I suggest you open that program and to get sort of warmed up, start playing around. And then we created a for loop, which looped through this string of text that we devised, that's the 20 amino acids, and then accessed the variable text as it went through the loop, and then saved some output. And you can see there's the output there. You can open that output directly from the File Explorer if you like. Not necessary today. Now what I want you also to notice is that you can run from the Run menu, you can run an entire script, or you can run individual lines of code. We saw that last week as well, run selection or run the entire script. Various options as well. You have those as icons at the top menu bar as well that you can explore. So I encourage you to fool around a little bit with the new IDE with your old software. Remember that sometimes you want to be able to restart the kernel, the core of the program, and that is under consoles, and that will delete the variables that you've already might have stored in a particular piece of software. Sometimes all that can interfere with your work. But let's move away from the IDE and go to the Jupyter Notebook, which is a useful tool for doing a sort of a browser-based editing. And we'll see that it has some limitations compared to the IDE, but you can see that you have a same file structure opened in your browser. You can navigate to where you want to be. We'll go follow my tree through my courses to Python scripts again, and we see we have the same set of stuff available to us here as we had in the IDE itself. Just showing you how that's going to work. We're going to use some Jupyter Notebooks in class this week, so I want you to just be familiar with the structure of how that works. But we can go to New over here on the right menus, and we'll choose Python 3, and it'll open a new window from which we can, again, just immediately start running some code. You can walk through those. There's a tour that I'd like you to spend a minute going through, following how to use the Jupyter Notebook, what the different features are. But notice that you can do things like save files. You can insert cells above or below the current cell. And importantly for us, and there's also running cells and running, etc., just like we see in the IDEs. Importantly, though, we can convert a particular cell to code or markdowns, which is just going to be a text editing kind of process. I'm not going to review those tools for you today, but those are simple HTML markup tools. And so if you use a few hashes, you can make things into a text heading that might provide information to whoever might be using your notebook. You'll see what I mean when we open our own. I'll insert a new cell, make it a code cell this time, and now it's actually going to be able to execute some Python commands for us, so we'll use that same one. All I'm doing here is showing you that in a Jupyter Notebook, there will be instructions that you can look at in text, and there'll also be an opportunity for you to follow those instructions by entering code. You can add cells, you can delete cells to do as much manipulation of that code that you've been provided with as you care to. And I'll even open the notebook that I want you to use. So this is available on the Learning Management System, and you can see that it's a pretty interactive. There's a link that you can go out to look at some other information, but you can read the instructions and then go down to your coding cells and enter some code to try to follow along with the instructions. As always, you can interrupt and restart the kernel if you think things are getting buggy, and that can be useful when you're going from one piece of code to another, one script to another.